Good morning, everybody. I think we're going to have a
Good
message.
morning. Before we begin today's service, we take a moment of silence to remember the life of Bert Frested. Bert was a member here and he passed away last July, but we just found out last week. He had moved last spring and we didn't have a forwarding address for him during the pandemic. And we just found out last week that he passed away in July. He was a kind man, a very smart man, a dedicated professor of mathematics who advocated for education and math on the state and national level. And he will be missed by those who knew him, and his legacy lives on in those who he taught and in advocating for everyone to have access to good education. Please join me in a moment of silence to remember Bert Frested.
Bright morning stars are rising. Deep is the breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? They are down in the valley of praying. Deep is the breaking in my soul.
That was lovely. Good morning, everybody. This is Fran Bohlke, Worship Associate, MVUUF. My opening words this morning are from Brian Stevenson, who's the author of Just Mercy. My work with the poor and incarcerated has persuaded me that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. Finally, I've come to believe that the true measure of our commitment to justice, the character of our society, our commitment to the rule of law, fairness, and equality cannot be measured by how we treat the rich, the powerful, the privileged, and the respected among us. The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. You'll now hear a song called We Will Meet by John Bell. And it's just such an appropriate song right now for the place we're at in this world, in this pandemic. So I hope you enjoy it.
We will meet when the danger is over. We will meet when the sad days are done. We will meet sitting closely together and be glad our tomorrow has come. We will join to give thanks and sing gladly. We will join to break bread and share wine, and the peace that we pass to each other will be more than a casual sign. So let's make with each other a promise meaning in the things that once troubled our mind. Until then, may we always discover faith and love to determine our way. That's our hope and God's will and our calling for our lives and for every new day. For our lives and for every new day.
Yeah, I thought Nicole did a great job choosing that song. If you are visiting today, please fill out the visitor form. Good morning again. My name is Fran Bohlke, and we welcome you this morning in your brokenness and your wholeness. We welcome your gifts and your needs, your curiosity and knowledge. In this community, we come together to care for ourselves and one another, and to do the work we are called to do together, to build a better world through love and service. Good day to those of you here in the Zoom gathering this morning, and to our friends watching live on YouTube right now, and those who are watching later. The spirit of this community transcends the boundaries of space and time. Wherever and whenever we are together. In the spirit of that togetherness, Maria is now going to light a chalice.
Yeah,
And you can also light one wherever you are.
I have a chalice that we made through RE. It's a flower pot tipped upside down.
All right. Perfect. And then if you would join me in reading the words for our chalice lighting this morning, they're from Reverend Lisa Friedman. And it's found in Lifting Our Voices, Readings in the Living Tradition. I assume is in the chat box. We hold hands to remember that we need one another and are part of one human family. We join voices to remember that we each have a gift to offer the world and to use in making the world a better place. And then we always make some time for Circle of Care, sharing our joys and sorrows. We set a few minutes aside to lift those up, and you can just unmute yourself, or if you see a hand waving, I'll try to. You can also type in the chat box. I'll try to read those.
Chat.
Leslie?
We had a joy this week. We were able to walk our neighbor's dog, she's so young and so fun and so full of energy. It was a joy to be able to do that, since we no longer have a dog in our home. So that was fun, and it helped the neighbor too.
And it was good for your health. Yes, all over. And then lifting up all of our friends down south or in Texas, Laura put in the chat box. Anybody else have anything? Steve, did you raise your hand? Steve Danko. This is like bidding at an auction. If you move, I'm going to call on you. Is that it? All right. Oh, grateful we could get vaccine appointments for Carla's parents. From Carla. And there are several of us in the fellowship who've gotten at least one vaccine, and some two. Us older folks, we know who we are, which we have a great deal of joy about that too, though we understand our lives aren't going to change a whole lot right away, right?
I just, on that note, want to remind everybody, if you didn't see the Friday email, I put a link in there for the state site where it doesn't matter where you are on the list of when it's your turn, you can register now, and then they'll just send you an email or a text when it is your time to make an appointment. And maybe I'll go find the Friday email and find that link and put it in the chat here too, but everybody can register now, so that's kind of nice. You don't have to wonder when it's your time. They'll just let you know.
Another thing from Karen Wills is, I'm really worried about my sister-in-law with Parkinson's disease. She is possibly moving into hospice. You might want to let Karen know you're thinking about her. And then Carla says, grateful the boys could go sledding with friends yesterday. First time seeing friends in almost a year. Wow. All right. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say we had the 2nd through 5th grade RE online Zoom today. And so I had this set up. So it's water, which represents the community, and the rocks are each of our joys and sorrows.
Okay. Oh, and I don't see that we have announcements there. I assume there's an announcement place coming up. But anyway, dance party Friday night. I know that was on the slide that Laura had earlier, but don't forget, I mean, even us old people can be at this dance party.
And
Candace says she's thinking of her cousins in Houston. Yes.
I also just wanted to mention on that dance party, there's actually 2 of them going on at the same time. So the family one will be on the regular RE Zoom account, and DJ Eric Grady, I think, is spinning the tunes there. And then Diane Bick is handling the more mature oldies spinning room. So those of us that want to listen to some older stuff can go there, take your pick, or maybe you can even bounce back and forth between them. I don't know.
But you don't have to act mature.
No, you don't even have to turn on your camera if you don't want to, but
yeah,
maybe.
there you go, Tom. You assume more mature. Yeah, not necessarily. Okay, I think it's time for our musical response.
Barb's waving her hands.
Oh, Barb, please.
This is just to recognize that radio personality Rush Limbaugh died this week. And for me, his life is a reminder that in the future, I hope to try to better understand what motivates people like his fans, and to recognize their humanity. He was a force who changed America. Maybe not in ways that we would like to see, but.
Yeah, very true. I see Diane Bick is in the house. Diane, we just talked about the big dance party. Okay, let's go ahead with the
And we believe in God and in the strength and strive from lonely and glory together. We have our hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer.
we continue our stewardship series on Why I Give with this heartfelt testimony from Myra Baser.
My name is Myra Basar, and I first attended services at Minnesota Valley in December of 2018. I came because I was searching for something that was missing in my life. I did grow up surrounded by a huge family. Mother was one of 10, so I was surrounded by countless cousins and aunts and uncles. So I was surrounded by colleagues and students, and that was my support network. I found a deep commitment to social justice issues and enjoyed a community of people I was regularly engaged with who believed. When I moved to Minnesota, I lost a lot of that. I started working in corporate, but I found a new spiritual practice, which was helping to raise my niece and nephew. In 2017, my sister bought her own house, and I was still settling into a new job, and I found myself a bit adrift, searching for something, searching for my people, meaning, and purpose. Sure, I still had my sister and the kids and new connections at work, but none of it seemed to be truly meeting my growing spiritual need. This year, I was asked to join the board, and I did that because what happens at Minnesota Valley means something to me. So this is why I give. I give to support the community I have found here, the community of giving and connection in others through challenging times. The community where there are people deeply passionate about social and racial justice issues, not only in thought, but in practice. The community that tackles these issues internally and externally, even when it's difficult. The community that believes we have to take care of each other and this world we live in for the generations that come after us. The community that believes in giving back to help those in need around us. The community that helps me see the light, even when it's very dark. This is why I give.
Your support of this congregation makes all of that possible. We invite your gratitude and support for this community through your continued donations. We are lucky enough to have a guest speaker this morning. Steve Kraemer is the Director of Conversations with Friends, CWF, the all-volunteer humanitarian 501c3 organization dedicated to supporting people detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, in the Carver, Freeborn, Candy, Ojai, and Sherburne County jails in Minnesota. Steve was part of the first CWF visit team in March of 2011 and became director in 2016. Through CWF's group visits, which are currently remote, Pen Pal, Dignity Backpack, and other programs, CWF volunteers are in friendship and solidarity with our brothers and sisters in ICE detention who suffer from isolation, loneliness, uncertainty, fear, and trauma as they face likely deportation and separation from their spouses, children, other family members, friends, and community. Through Steve's presentation, you'll come to know why people in ICE detention in Minnesota came to the US, where they're from originally, how long they've lived in the US, why they want to remain, the consequences of deportation, and more. And welcome, Steve. You've got 20 minutes.
Okay. Let me just. Can everybody see the screen here? First, I just want to thank Fran and Reverend Laura for this opportunity to be here. I mean, it really is a pleasure to be here, and it's also so gratifying because one of the things that we do is advocate for people who are in immigration detention. They ask us many, many times, can you spread the word? Can you raise awareness? Can you educate people to know what's going on, that we're here and why we're here? So that's what I want to do, is share the story. So, and I've got a lot to cover. And so let's go. The key thing to know here is that we were all outraged last year when we saw and heard the stories of people, families being separated, parents from their kids at the border. The point here is the family separation that's occurring every day in the country, and especially here in Minnesota, is just as outrageous. Today, on any day of the week in the United States, this is a number as of this is February 12th, 13.8 thousand people are being detained by ICE in jails throughout the United States. The positive news, that's down tremendously from 2019 when it was 56,000 at the peak, but still it's almost 14,000 people. And as of a year ago, roughly 81% were held in facilities run by private prisons. The GEO Group, Core Civic, LaSalle Corrections, and capitalism plays a major role in what's happening here. These are publicly traded companies on the stock exchange, GEO Group and Core Civic. People are making a lot of money at the misfortune of people with whom we're visiting. The balance of the people are either held in ICE-run or county, city-run facilities. So in Minnesota, it's in county-run facilities. So we started visiting, as Fran mentioned, back in March of 2011 in the Ramsey County Jail, in groups in classrooms. They stopped housing people, fortunately, at the end of 2017. But we got approval to visit in Freeborn in October of 2015, in Carver County in Chaska in July of 2019, and in Candy-Ojai in March of last year. So before the pandemic, we were visiting in classrooms twice a week at Freeborn, and as well as a couple times a month in Freeborn, a couple times a month in Carver. And post-pandemic, we're visiting remotely via Zoom every single week, once a week in Freeborn, twice a month in Carver. We're writing weekly, as Fran does, to currently about 65 people that are in any one of those first 3 detention centers I mentioned above, or Sherburne, those 4 county jails that are housing people for ICE. This is a picture of a group of us before we entered into the classroom. The guard took this picture back about 5 years ago at Freeborn County. This is a picture of the classroom where we visit. And so each of the typically 6 visitors will sit down at a table with about 3 gentlemen. And so 18 people for the first hour, 18 people roughly for the second hour. So we visit somewhere between 30, 40, sometimes 50 people over a 2-hour period. You're not going to be able to read much of this, but the reason I show it is that in our 2 visits back early this month, February 3rd was in Spanish, February 10th was in English. We visited with a total of 27 gentlemen. It's all men. They're all men in the Freeborn County Jail in Albert Lea. And so this shows the breakout of where people are from. And everything I mentioned today is based on our experience in Minnesota. And obviously, things are different from facility to facility and state to state. But you'll notice that 4 men with whom we visited were from Mexico, 3 from Liberia, 2 from Nigeria, 2 from Sudan, 2 from Laos, 1 from Australia, and all these other countries, Egypt, El Salvador, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Ghana, Guatemala, and Nepal. On the far right column shows a number of years that these gentlemen have been living in the United States. So for example, the 4 men from Mexico have lived here 23, 23, 22, and 5 years respectively. The median number of years people have lived in the United States of the 27 with whom we visited, 15.5 years. So for many people, they've lived here for half their life or more. The median number of months that they've been in ICE detention in Freeborn is, for these 27 men, 2.7 months. But it ranges from people who had just entered the week before to as many as 9 months. And this is the amount of time they spent in Freeborn. They could have been in Sherburne or one of the other jails before they came to Freeborn. This is a picture of a gentleman who we helped with our safe release program that I'll talk about a bit later. And so I've got 4 key slides regarding the people with whom we have the honor and privilege of visiting and writing to and supporting in ICE detention. As you saw in that previous chart, people are primarily Africans from East Africa in general, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Liberia, Nigeria, and Latinos who are from Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. Where are they jailed? In Minnesota, in any one of 4 county jails. And so currently Carver County Jail in Chaska is jailing, ICE is jailing 2 men there. In Freeborn County, 37 men. In Candy, Ojai, a grand total of 70 people in Wilmer, Minnesota, and I think about 20% are women, roughly 14, 15. In Sherburne County, about 50, and I think about 10% are women. And that was as of this past week. So a grand total of 159 people currently being detained by ICE in the state of Minnesota in any one of these 4 county jails. So why did they come? For one of 3 reasons. They could have overstayed a temporary visa. They came to either study or work or potentially travel. That accounted for roughly 42%, and that's a fairly old number. I have not been able to find an updated number, but they found that it was worth their risk to stay in the United States rather than returning to their home country. This other group is the group that you hear most often, you read about and hear about in the news, and that's people who cross the border without documents for a host of reasons. Safety reasons, tending to be the number one, economic, educational reasons, and also sometimes to join a family member who's already here. And then the third group, and this is a group that you'll seldom hear about in the news, very, very seldom, are people that were refugees from those countries that we mentioned earlier, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, and other countries, went to a refugee camp, potentially in Ethiopia, for example. They were resettled by Lutheran Immigration Refugee Services or Catholic Charities. In most cases, they had a green card, but they committed some type of offense, and now they find that they were deportable because they didn't take the final step to become a citizen for one reason or another. So why did they come to the United States? Many are coming, as I mentioned, for safety reasons due to violence. More than 2/3 of the migrants fleeing from Central America's Northern Triangle, and that's Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, they experienced either the murder, the disappearance, or the kidnapping of a relative sometime before their departure, and that's according to a report from the Doctors Without Borders about a year ago. Here's a recent article, actually, earlier this month from a newspaper in Guatemala, Prensa Libre, and they list, these are major reasons now. Climate change is a major reason, but the most recent were the hurricanes in November of 2020. People are homeless. The pandemic, of course, lack of employment and poverty, criminal violence that's rampant. Honduras, for example, one of the most dangerous countries in the world, and the lack of protection from organized crime in the country. The fact that human rights are being violated, not only that, but people are attacking human rights defenders and activists in the community, and they're attacking indigenous communities. And of course, the continuing political crises in some of these countries over the last 10+ years. So how long have they lived in the United States? Well, you saw the chart earlier. The median number of years was 15.1 years in 2017. That's per the last report that the Pew Research Center had done, June of 2019, 15.1 years having lived in the United States. 2/3 have lived in the United States for a decade or more. So what happens when you're able to stay in the United States for this long a time? You establish roots here. You may meet somebody. You may get married. You may have kids. You have a family. They may attend a service at a faith community. The kids may go to school. And now you have firm roots established in the community and you want to stay here. So why were they able to stay so long? They were able to get jobs. People without documentation were given jobs. Employers desperate for hard workers are looking for people who are going to work hard for them, and they hire them. Sometimes, obviously, people are using false documentation to do so. But in my conversations with almost everyone with whom I've ever visited, it's like, Steve, they know we don't have documentation. They know, and they hire us because they want us to work there. So what happens? We are punishing people who have received a job with little to no penalty for the employers that actually hired those people. So there's a major complicity going on here. So how do they get on ICE's radar screen to begin with? And some people will say, all you have to do nowadays is be driving and be pulled over for a traffic violation or a broken taillight. Well, that's how you get on the radar. That's not the reason you're being deported. Under the previous administration, you could be deported for a crime or no crime. So there could have been a traffic stop for speeding, for a broken taillight, for drinking while they're driving, for possession of drugs that were found when they were pulled over. There could have been an ICE raid at their factory or their plant. There could have been identity theft where they took someone's credit card. Maybe say they were studying in the library, they saw someone at another computer and the person left for a few minutes, they grabbed a credit card, and that's identity theft. They could have been shoplifting at Target. Or there could have been some more serious crime, assault, robbery, and other things. But, and I've asked this question many times over the years, what is a major reason why people find themselves in ICE detention? And officers in jails will usually respond with one word: alcohol. Or if they use another word, it may be drugs. If they committed a crime and were arrested, did they serve their time? This is tremendously important to realize, to understand, is that the great majority, with few exceptions, of people that are currently detained by ICE have already served any sentence that they had, paid any fine that they incurred as a result of any crime they may have committed. So this just addresses that issue about crime. And have these people committed serious crimes? Well, this group called the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, TRAC, out of Syracuse University, did a study in March of 2020 that said, in fact, more than 6 out of 10 had absolutely no conviction, not even for a minor petty offense. Just 1 in 10 have a serious criminal conviction on record where individuals are thought to pose a threat to public safety. So why are they being detained by ICE? Why are we detaining people after they've already served their sentence for whatever crime they may have committed? Because they don't have documentation. And so they're not serving time for a crime at this point. They are in detention simply to ensure that they appear at their immigration hearing. Pre-pandemic, they were occurring at the Whipple Federal Building at Fort Snelling. Currently, during the pandemic, they just walk into an office at a computer screen and they do a video appearance with the folks that are in the Fort Snelling immigration court. What's the likely result of their immigration hearing? And this is not an exaggeration. The most likely result is going to be deportation. I mean, every month we look at the folks with whom we had been writing or visiting, and the great majority are being deported. Now, if they're not being deported, what happens? Well, they may be granted bond. It's very, very difficult. In fact, it's almost impossible to be granted bond. But if they are granted bond, this is a temporary retrieve. It's temporary reprieve from deportation because they're still going to have another immigration hearing. And though they now switch from being part of the detained docket to the non-detained docket, the next hearing may be a year or two away, they still may find themselves being deported. Or they may have been granted relief under the Convention Against Torture, also known as CAT, where they convinced the immigration judge that, hey, if I go back to Somalia, my birth country, I will be tortured. There's a more than a 50% chance I will be deported. But again, future deportation is possible. If things change and that fear goes away, the country changes in 5, 10, 20 years, they could find themselves being deported. More and more often, especially over the last couple months, immigration lawyers have been filing habeas corpus filings with the court. That requires ICE to either deport or release somebody after 180 days have passed. So 6 months have gone by, you're in jail, you're still there. The government cannot hold you indefinitely. They have to decide whether they're either going to deport you or release you. Again, if as a result of that habeas filing, the court says, okay, you're not going to deport, you're going to release, again, they're released under an order of supervision, they could potentially be deported sometime down the road. And there are some exceptions where someone may be granted freedom under something called the cancellation of removal, but it's very, very seldom. It may happen, it seems maybe once a month, if that. So here's an example of a gentleman, his name is Omar Muhammad, and typically I would not give you the full name of somebody, but if you're interested, you could go online and search for his name and look under Sahan Journal, S-A-H-A-N Journal, and they did a story about a month ago. And it mentions him and a number of things going on in the Candy-Ojai County Jail where he is currently detained. And he was arrested for possession of cat back in illegal stimulant back in 2006. 2016, he was arrested, served time, was released on 2-year probation for insurance fraud. He's been detained by ICE since 2017. In May of this year, he will have been in ICE detention for 4 years. Now, he's considered a flight risk, so he didn't never qualify for bond. And even though he was previously paroled, he still was rejected for bond. He won his case 2 times, but both times the Department of Homeland Security, the government attorneys, appealed the decision. And each time a decision is appealed, it's got to go to the Board of Immigration Appeals in Virginia, and that process can take anywhere between 6 months and a year to get a decision. So no wonder he's been in jail for 4 years. So we first met him in the Freeborn County Jail in November of 2018 during a visit. 1 month later, he'd been transferred to Sherburne County Jail. 2 months later, he was transferred to Candy-Ojai Jail. 5 months later to Carver. Fortunately, we started our visits in August of 2019, so we were able to visit him again after almost a year had passed. Then he was transferred to Candy-Ojai in December, and we were able to visit him again when we started visiting there this past March. But why the transfers? Because it adds to the stress and the trauma. It's a way to encourage people to throw in the towel and say, I just can't fight it anymore. I guess I got to go back to my home country. I just can't take it anymore. So the pen pal has been writing to him, Becca, since November of 2018. Incredible, writing weekly. In the meantime, we're also sending books there. So here's a gentleman. We first visited with him in January of 2019. He's been here for 19 years. He's from Sudan. And he won his case, but he was granted deferral of removal under CAT. And the immigration judge agreed that he was likely he'd be deported. He'd be tortured if he returned. So the Department of Homeland Security appealed his decision. And so he was in jail for another almost a year. But in November of 2020, the case was dismissed and he was going to be released. But ICE is allowed to look for another place to deport you to. Obviously, they're not going to send him to Sudan. They're going to look to South Sudan, South Sudan or other countries that may deport him. They got 90 days to do that. So he's in jail away from his family and friends for another 3 months. But fortunately, he was granted release in February of 2021. He is now home with family. There's a few other gentlemen that I was going to talk to you about. And one particular said, in this country, I found what I came looking for. I have a family here. They are safe and have a future, and I want to help them as their father. He's 35 years old, 19 years here, and he was deported. So this gentleman said, yes, it was very difficult to leave my parents and wife and daughter and his brothers and sisters. And because of necessity, I did. I am very sad and traumatized already. I want to leave from this place, because I feel very sad. I want to leave to help my family because they need me to work in this country in order to send them money for food and medicine for my parents and milk for my daughter. So you can see this again on YouTube and stop and pause and look at all the reasons for the tremendous trauma that people are living through in detention. It's just an endless list. And more reasons here: the medical care, the food, the no right to an attorney unless you pay for one or are lucky to find a pro bono lawyer. And so one of the gentlemen said, if George Floyd's murderer doesn't qualify for bond, why can't I? So this is the tremendous fear of likely deportation, when families will be destroyed, because there's a very high likelihood they may never be able to return to the United States again and see their spouses or children again. The remaining household is going to lose at least 50%, sometimes 100% of their income. There's the emotional and psychological torture both on the parents being deported and the children remaining here. There's permanent separation from friends and community, and you're facing return to a country that you may no longer know. You haven't been there for 15 years potentially or longer. You literally do not know the language, the culture there. And when you return, there's a danger of being targeted by gangs, and also the danger of being shunned by the community. You had left at one point in time, and now you're coming back. So you're not welcomed with open arms. So how do they feel when we meet them? Fearful, lonely, isolated, depressed. And so these are the things that we do. We visit, we write letters weekly. We have a circle of compassion of about 25 faith communities that support and pray for people in ICE detention. We make modest donations for people who have less than $10 in their accounts. We send books in based on specific requests, books that people don't already have available in the library. We provide backpacks for people being deported, drop them off at the Whipple building with some jeans and some shirts and hiking shoes and clothes. And we also provide backpacks for people in response to a call from ICE when they say, hey, can you help us out? This gentleman's from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He has no way of getting to his destination. We'll pick him up at the Whipple building, see if he needs any food or clothing, bring him to the bus station, buy a bus ticket, and get him on his way. This is a picture of a gentleman who showed all the cards that he received when he was in ICE detention for many, many months. He was proud to just put them on the bench outside the Whipple building before we took him to the bus station. And here are reasons you can look at online for why we do what we do, why we visit, why we write. But it all can be summed up in 3 little words: to be present. And someone had said, conversation with friends are true friends that care. They visit us and give us comfort. They are good listeners and good support for court appointments. If you're feeling upset, talking to CWF will make your day and make you feel better. So in summary, incarceration by ICE is causing family separation every day right here in Minnesota. Deportation, which causes the destruction of the family, and emotional and psychological torture for those being deported, as well as the family members, is an inhumane, unjust, and unacceptable form of punishment in a civilized society. Both practices must end. So if you want to get involved, you want to raise your awareness further, these are some things you can do: getting a mailing list of some local organizations, advocate by calling your senator, call your House representative, or email us at Conversation with Friends. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them if there's any time left.
Thank you, Steve. Wonderful. And I know we could go on and on with this, but we did set aside a few minutes for Q&A. So just go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question for Steve, or you can put it in the chat and I'll see if I can catch it. Okay.
And if you have further questions too, feel free to email me. And I'd be happy
I have a question.
to respond. Hi, Eric.
Hi. So I know there was a big issue in the news about the Hmong community in Minnesota. I noticed on one of your charts, it said there was a couple of gentlemen that had been here for 40 years. And I know some of Trump's policies were putting like 700 Hmong folks at least at risk. Could you give us just a status on where that is now with the Hmong and Lao people in Minnesota? Thank you.
Well, the 2 gentlemen who I include on that list, they have legal representation. And I think under the new administration, we're going to see tremendous improvement. And there's so much hope to see improvement. And so I I can't imagine that going forward, we're going to continue to consider deporting people, especially these people who've been here for 40 years. So I do see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're already experiencing a dramatic reduction in the number of arrests. And there's of course, with the 100-day moratorium that will be in place, though it's currently on pause, there will be a dramatic reduction in deportation. So this is very, very good news. But the key issue is we can't just have executive actions, because they could go away with a new administration. We have to have a new immigration policy. So if you advocate for anything, that would be the best thing to do, is to say, hey, we need to have an immigration policy that treats our brothers and sisters like human beings with dignity. And we do away with this detention and deportation that we're doing.
Steve,
So-
I think you kind of answered a question that showed up in the chat from the Swensons. How do you keep your own hopes up? It seems like so much is working against your efforts. I think you kind of answered that.
Yeah, and one other thing that gives us so much hope is that the number of people in ICE detention has dropped dramatically. I mean, I showed you the numbers earlier at the jails here in the state of Minnesota. That number was about 450 about a year and a half ago. There were 300 people detained at the Sherburne County Jail about a year and a half ago. They actually have a contract with ICE that pays them to house and bed 300 people a day. That number is now down to 50. So that gives us tremendous, tremendous hope that all of a sudden we're going to treat people like fellow human beings. We're going to treat people like we would want to be treated. So in the meantime, we are accompanying people. We are there, we're writing letters to people. We're visiting people. We're supporting them in multiple ways, letting them know that they're not abandoned. They're not alone. Someone in the community, even total strangers, truly care about you and your health and your well-being. And we advocate for you. So you're not alone, and community members care. And we are just the tip of the iceberg. The great majority of people in the United States agree that this is inhumane, unjust, and unacceptable. The great, great majority. And that gives people hope.
Mm-hmm. We had another question from Karen. What are some examples of conversation openers when you write or meet and our volunteers given suggestions? Well, I can answer that one, Steve. We had a training in the fall for those of us who were going to start pen paling with detainees, and it's a very good training. And Steve and the other people who have been involved give us all kinds of ideas about what to write about, what you may and may not send. And there are only a few that actually are on the Zoom, if I'm correct. But they know, what it is you can talk about and what you do not talk about. Am I right, Steve?
Yeah, and you ask questions that you'd ask with anyone else that you'd meet on the street, or someone down, at the grocery store, or when you're walking around the lake, you meet somebody. Hey, what kind of work do you do? They don't say, what kind of work did you do? What kind of work do you do? How many kids do you have? What are your hobbies? Do you like baseball? Do you like soccer? Soccer's a real popular thing. What do you like to do in your free time? I mean, they like to hear what we're doing. And it's not depressing. The guys say, hey, we're not depressed by letting us know. We want to hear what life is going on, that people, what brings people joy, what's bringing people happiness. Because when we hear your stories, it reminds us of the beauty and the life that we had before, and we hope to have once we get the heck out of here. So it's very affirming. I mean, we got a letter from a gentleman who said, I can't believe I got a letter from you every single week, and you're not a member of my family. I'm not related to you. I mean, how could this be? I'm just so thankful. And so we got a letter just the other day. And this gentleman wrote, I want to sincerely thank each and every member and volunteers in Conversation with Friends. You guys are such an awesome people. Words cannot express how I feel about you guys. I'm forever grateful for all that you have done for us. God bless CWF with an abundant resources. Thank you for everything. Much love and peace be with you always. Goodbye, my friends. I will keep in touch. Best regards.
Mm-hmm. And then, Steve, there's another question from Tom. What is the current status of private prison use?
Well, according to the Biden administration, they want to dramatically reduce the use of private prisons. I mean, not only for ICE attention, but for everybody. And so, you know, one way, and I haven't looked at it for a while, but one way to look at what the future holds for the GEO group and Core Civic is to look for their stock quotes and see what where their stock prices are over the last 52 weeks, because we'd love to see those companies go out of business. So that is certainly, and one of the initiatives of the current Biden administration is to look very closely at eliminating or dramatically reducing the use of private prisons. A very good question. Thank you.
Yeah, Steve, you're fantastic. And I knew I could give you a whole hour and you would fill it and it would be awesome. And I had to limit you. So thank you so much. You know, and if anybody needs to get a hold of Steve, go ahead if you have more questions. And I will keep putting things in the newsletters and the Friday announcements. So if you don't get your question answered today or soon, you'll have an opportunity to contact him.
Thank you so much again for the opportunity to be here. I can't thank you enough. And to be with a faith community that is so socially oriented, social justice oriented, such an outward looking congregation. It's just, that's how I get inspired, and what gives me hope is to see people looking outward and doing whatever they can do. Because in this situation, we're talking about a man-made disaster that had nothing to do with storms, ice, hurricanes. It's our own doing, and we can change it. So thanks so much for being attentive and the invitation. I'm so pleased. Thank you very, very much.
How do we always, I'm asking Steve for more. Would you put if you could just put your email in the chat?
Oh, that's a great idea. Thank you.
And I'm going to start with the chalice extinguishing. I know there's more people with questions, and I could keep this man for another hour, but we're not going to do that. So he'll put the email in there. Feel free to, he's very good at responding to emails. I found that out. Yeah. So chalice extinguishing, Maria, you've got the chalice you'll extinguish for us. And let's read this together. It's in the chat box, okay? We extinguish
this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together
again. Okay, and then enjoy this beautiful song.
Helping you to It's much harder than it really is, but we'll get through it. Don't give in. Count on me through thick and thin, a friendship that would never end. When you are weak, I will be strong, helping you to carry on. Call on me, I will be there. Don't be afraid. Please believe me when I say, come on, count on, you can count on. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you
Wonderful. And I believe Laura put all those visuals together for that. Wasn't that great? Oh, chills, right?